Mm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, go for it. You have some passages in mind? Oh, okay. Well, how about I'll talk about that, the question for just a moment about do we ever graduate from this, the title disciple? I'm going to say no. We don't ever really graduate from being a disciple because there's no point at which we've actually and finally mastered what it means to be a Christian. We're constantly pursuing after Christ. And even though, some pastors may earn degrees from seminary or Bible college, there's a sense in which you never learn at all. And we're still imitating after Christ and learning from him. So even the very best and brightest of us are still disciples in the broadest sense of the term. And not only that, Brandon, but Christianity has kind of a flipped over ladder model from the world. In the world, what you do is you climb to the higher rank and you get a bigger title, a bigger desk, a corner office with a window, bigger salary. And the idea is you just move yourself all the way up on the ladder as high as you can to be in charge of the boss of more people. But in Christianity, even those of us who are supposed to be leaders are really supposed to be the servants of all, which is why Jesus says that the first will be last and the last will be first. So even as a Christian gets more and more mature in the faith, he's supposed to also become more and more childlike in his demeanor and his treatment of others, regarding others better than himself, and learning to humble himself. So yeah, there's some other titles. There's a title of elder and deacon and episcopos, which means a bishop. We take those bishop and the term elder as the same rank. But even there, the word rank probably isn't the best phrase because it's not like the military where you work your way up to get a higher and higher title. It's more like the opposite, where you try to serve lower and lower until you are as humble as you can be and more like Jesus. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. That's awesome. Sure it is. 9:16 says, "For I will show him how much he must suffer for the sake of my name." Is that the passage you're looking for? Yeah. hmm Yeah. That's right. That's right. Boy. Yeah. Imagine getting a new job where, on the first day, they show you how much you're going to suffer. So, boy, I'm excited for this one, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've even heard for the police, and maybe you would know this, that you have to get sprayed in the face by mace so you know what it feels like. And if you're going to use one of those electro gizmos to be able to restrain people, you have to get shocked by it yourself. I don't know if it's exactly like that where Paul is shown how much he would suffer for Christ. Probably a little bit different. But the idea being Paul absolutely did suffer. He was stoned in the city of Lystra. He was shipwrecked. He was beaten with fists. He really got worked over. However, the one thing that we know about Paul was that he regarded Christ as being worth suffering all things. And so Paul says, in a number of places that Christ is worth any amount of suffering that one would have to go through in order to live fully for his glory. So even though he's shown as the chosen instrument, he does get the honor of carrying his name before the Gentiles and kings and children of Israel. So, at the end of the day, it's all worth it to Paul and to us. Yeah, sure, of course, or worse. Yeah, man. Okay. Right. So let me go ahead and read that passage. This is as Ananias is receiving the call. It says, "He has seen a vision, and in a vision a man named Ananias come and lay his hands on him so that he might regain his sight. But Ananias answered, 'Lord, I've heard from many about this man, how much evil he has done to your saints at Jerusalem. And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all who call on your name.' But the Lord said to him, 'Go, for he is a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentiles and kings and children of Israel.'" So Ananias has an objection to God's call. And he's kind of like Moses here, where as soon as he gets the call, he's got a little bit of an objection, like, "Okay, Lord, but I have a few concerns." And his concern is Paul's reputation. Now, before Paul was converted in Acts 9, he's a persecutor of the church. And he was standing there when Stephen was stoned, holding the coats of those who threw stones. And Paul is on a mission with permission from the authorities to capture Christians, separate them from their families if necessary, and bring them to prison. So no wonder Ananias is rightly concerned about this. He's fearful not only for himself, but I would say he's also fearful for the sake of the church, because Ananias doesn't want to see himself suffer, of course, but he also doesn't want the church to be infiltrated by Paul. Because remember, he's concerned that Paul's kind of working as a double agent here in this moment. That, well, maybe Paul's just pretending that he's the Christian, and he's going to turn on all of us and turn us into the authorities, and we'll go to jail. So Ananias is rightly concerned here. But Brandon, something happens in verse 17 that is so profound. It's really quite glorious. In verse 17, when Ananias and Paul meet, it says he lays his hands on him and called him brother Saul. Now that is really moving there, because in that moment, Ananias has submitted to God's proper authority. He has trusted his Lord. And so the very first word that he says to Paul is the word brother. He regards him as a true Christian. He may be a little bit fearful. He may pray with one eye open as he watches Paul out of the corner of his eye, but he calls him his brother. And that is so meaningful, because this would be the first time that Paul is loved on by another Christian. And one of the reasons I call Ananias a mentor, because here he's demonstrating, he's teaching him by his words and his actions what it means to be a faithful Christian. Yeah, pretty cool little detail there, huh? Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, man. Larger Catechism 109. Ringing like a siren there. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Right. You know what's cool, Brandon? And this thought just struck me here. Going back to Acts 22, where that parallel passage is told again, Paul is describing the very moments where he can see, and it says, "Brother Saul, receive your sight, and at that very hour I received my sight and saw him." Now, in this connection here, it's Ananias is what he saw. So once he had been blinded by God for that temporary time, when Ananias prays for him and opens up his eyes, what does he see for the very first time but this brother, Ananias, who has received him with love? So what a welcome face Paul would have seen as the scales fall from his eyes, but a brother who is accepting him and regarding him and now going to spend time with him. And it even appears that Ananias prepares a meal for Saul, just a kind thing to do. You know, the ministry of hospitality, even sharing food with another believer is a powerful thing. And so there's just this great touching moment here that